Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me for Singapore FinTech Festival coverage is my colleague Darren Innes, Head of Strategy of Anti-Money Laundering Technology at Nasdaq, to discuss financial crime management. Darren, it's great to see you, although virtually. Welcome back to Trade Talks.
Thank you, Jill. It's really great to have the opportunity to chat again.
Of course. And the anti-money laundering solutions ecosystem is new for Nasdaq. Why does Nasdaq want to get into this space?
Yeah, good question. So the first thing is obviously Nasdaq is concerned when we look at the amount of money laundering that happens each year, and it is an incredibly significant number. One estimate by the Financial Crime News was over $4 trillion a year. We feel that with our status as a practitioner and as a technology provider, we have the responsibility to try and bring transparency, integrity, and efficiency to the financial ecosystem. The other kind of thing that's important is when you look at how much banks spend in this area, estimates anywhere between $38 and $50 billion a year trying to fight this problem. And currently they spot roughly 1.5% of that every year. So it's a very tiny amount. So they're spending an awful lot of money for not a huge amount of gain. So when we looked at the market, and we've spent the last, 18 months, 24 months, actually reviewing the market and trying to identify where we can be a catalyst for change. One of the areas is in operations. And the reason for that is when you look at that spend that I mentioned earlier, the majority of that is spent on people today. And we feel that with the advancements of technology, we can actually automate some of those processes people are doing. So that became very attractive to us, but not automation for the sake of removing people, but allowing people to spend more time and become more effective when they investigate problems. And if we can do that, we can actually help increase that 1.5% that's actually found today. So that's kind of why we've come into it. We found a problem area, and we also have a very strong belief in providing integrity to the financial system.
Can you tell us a bit about your anti-money laundering offering and what industry gaps it addresses?
Yeah, so the offering we have, and as I just mentioned, that the spend on operations is huge today. So what we've done is we've identified a technology that was built by an organization called Caspian, and that technology actually replicates complex human decision making. So rather than when you talk about automation tools today, you might hear about things like robotic process automation that does certain tasks for people. We can actually replicate how they think and how people make a decision. So the area that was very attractive to apply this technology to first was the investigation of alerts driven out of an AML transaction monitoring system. And if we can do that in an area where, to be honest, 98% of what these transaction monitoring systems find today are what we call false positives. And false positives are basically you investigating good customers. So if we can automate a lot of that investigation they do today on irrelevant alerts to some point, and then allow people to properly focus on what matters, that's significant. So that is what we've done. And we feel that technology could be applied elsewhere.
Has COVID-19 impacted financial crime management? And if so, what has been the biggest challenge?
COVID, that's an interesting one. I mean, there's two things. When you look at it from a criminal perspective, certain crimes have risen significantly. Fraud and cybercrime being a couple of those. Like us, criminals are working from home, right? And if they're working from home, they have technology in front of them. Some of the easiest things they can do are fraud and cybercrime in that respect. So that's one area. So we're seeing a rise in alerts. We're also seeing that one of the things you look at when you look at transaction monitoring, and there's like a model around changes in behavior, right? So if you see someone's behavior change, that could be suspicious. Well, everybody's behavior has changed. So Therefore, there has been a rise in the volume of alerts being driven out of those transaction monitoring systems. And that means people have to investigate those. Now, people, unfortunately, they get sick, right? So the first thing is people get sick. So they have a risk of COVID. And the big operations investigation, or the AML investigation centers, like everywhere else, every other organization, every other type of industry, have had to be closed down during this period, and people have had to work from home. And many banks have struggled to move everyone to home and enable them to have the tools to work. So we've seen a huge increase in, if you like, the backlog of AML investigations that have to take place. Again, if you can automate a lot of what people are doing today, then you can, if you like, reduce that backlog and that impact on trying to investigate things in the future.
And Darren, finally, what are your goals for the future with AML? It seems as if it's always a game of cat and mouse in these kinds of industries.
We want to give people the tools to remove the work that is getting in the way of them actually identifying crime. Right? We would love to see a higher percentage of criminality stopped, a reduction in illegal money that flows through the system, and if we can automate a lot of the practices they do today, will give them more time to identify that crime. So that's where we want to go with it as a product that we have. But we also see that we can do similar when we think about things like fraud. If you think about things like payments fraud, the investigation process at the first level in AML is incredibly similar to the investigation process for fraud or for payments fraud. And as I said right at the beginning, criminals are carrying out more fraud. So if we can help in that area and then protect clients and the customers of our clients, even better. So that's a big vision, a big strategy, but we do believe we're well placed to execute on that.
All right, Darren, appreciate all the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at NASDAQ.